I couldn't believe it. My father sold my apartment to my sister without even consulting me. I found out through a single text message. I sold the apartment to your sister. She needs it more. My heart stopped. How could this happen? 3 months ago, it was just another ordinary workday. I left the office at 6 p.m., navigating the bustling Manhattan streets, eager for a quiet evening at home. But when I opened my apartment door, I was met with a shocking sight. My sister was there, not visiting, not waiting. She was inside, completely at ease, as if the place belonged to her. My pulse quickened. How did you get in here? I asked, frowning. She looked at me calmly, almost as if I were the one out of place. Why are you asking? This is my place now. I froze. What? Dad already transferred the ownership. Her words hit like a blow to the chest. I grabbed my phone and called my father. No answer. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 5 minutes. Nothing. Then, a text. I sold the apartment to your sister. She needs it more. I stared at the screen, my fists clenching until my nails bit into my palms. He sold it. As if it wasn't mine, as if I hadn't poured every cent and ounce of effort into earning it. Without even asking me. A unilateral decision. She needs it more? Did she really? What about me? Did I not need a place to live? Did my father think I could just surrender my dream because I had a stable job? My heartbeat roared in my ears. This was no misunderstanding. My father had sold my home without a shred of consideration. I dialed his number again. The ringtone mocked me. No answer. A second call. A third. By the 10th, I was unraveling. Why wasn't he picking up? He knew I'd call. He was avoiding me. My grip on the phone tightened until it creaked. Anger surged, sharp and unrelenting. I couldn't stay still. I grabbed my car keys, got in, and started driving to confront him in person. As I drove, memories flooded back, dragging me to a childhood steeped in unfairness. My father always favored my sister, Victoria. It was a truth I'd lived with forever. At 7, my mother gave me the Barbie doll I'd dreamed of for months. Before I could touch it, my father took it and handed it to Victoria. She's older. You should let her have it. But shouldn't it be the older sibling who shares? Why was I always the one to sacrifice? I cried. I protested, but he ignored me. Victoria smirked, clutching the doll like it was hers all along. At 10, I got a pink scooter I loved. I spent the summer mastering it. One day, I came home from school, and it was gone. I gave it to Victoria. My father said, she needs it more. Stunned, I couldn't understand how she needed my scooter more than I did. At 16, I worked all summer at a coffee shop to buy a bike, my first taste of independence. Less than a week later, I saw Victoria riding it. She needs it to get to school, my father said. Let her have it. That same excuse, again and again. I watched Victoria pedal away on my bike, bitterness burning inside me. When I objected, my father called me selfish, as if wanting to keep what was mine was wrong. My mother tried to soften the blows. She never challenged him, but she'd quietly buy me something to ease the hurt. When he took the first phone I bought myself, she slipped me money to replace it. But I didn't want replacements, I wanted fairness. Now, at 28, nothing had changed. Only this time, he didn't take a toy, a scooter, or a phone. He took my home. But I wasn't staying silent anymore. 30 minutes later, I arrived at my father's house. I pushed the door open, my breath quick and shallow, anger pulsing through me. The living room was eerily calm, unchanged, as if nothing monumental had happened. My father sat in his armchair, a cup of tea in hand, flipping through a newspaper without a trace of guilt. My fist clenched, heat rising in my chest. You can't do this, I said, my voice trembling with rage. That apartment is mine. He set his teacup down and looked at me, his expression cold, like I was overreacting. My name is still on the papers, he said slowly. I had the right to do it. I stared at him, my mind reeling. What right? Do you even remember who paid for that apartment? Who covered every payment, month after month, without fail? He shrugged, leaning back, unfazed. So what? My name was on the documents. That means I had the final say. Anger surged so fiercely I could barely contain it. You can't just sell my apartment because your name is on some paper, I shouted. That was my work, my sweat, my sacrifice. He chuckled dismissively, as if my words were meaningless. Don't be so dramatic, he said, reaching for his newspaper. It's done. I stood there, staring at the man I was supposed to trust, watching him brush off the greatest achievement of my life like it was nothing. Then a voice cut through the tension. Enough. I turned. My mother stood there, her face etched with fury, her eyes blazing with years of unspoken disappointment. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. Do you think you have the right to do this? Just because your name is on some paper? You think you can take everything she worked so hard for? My father scoffed, crossing his arms. I had the right. I was a co-owner. No, you were not, she fired back. You signed to help her buy it. But she paid every cent herself. You never contributed $1. Do you even know how hard she worked? How much she struggled? He stayed silent, indifferent, as if her words didn't matter. My mother trembled, her voice rising. You've mistreated her for years. My mother's voice trembled with years of pent-up anger. You've always favored Victoria. Always taken from her to give to her sister. I've stayed silent far too long. But not this time. My father's frown deepened, but she pressed on. From childhood, you've put Victoria first, her toys, her bike, even the phone she bought with her own money. And now her home. No, I won't let this happen. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. This time, I'm standing with you. If you and Victoria don't return her apartment immediately, she paused, drawing a shaky breath, I'll divorce you. And I'll disown Victoria. A heavy silence swallowed the room. I'd never heard my mother speak with such resolve. My father let out a cold laugh, grabbed his car keys, and walked out without looking back. The door slammed shut, the sound ringing like a final verdict. My mother and I stood there, wordless, holding each other as tears fell. We sat in silence, our thoughts in chaos. My father was gone. My sister had claimed my apartment. It felt like the world was against me. Then my phone rang, an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello? This is from the finance company. We received a request to transfer ownership of your apartment. My grip tightened, my chest constricting. Transfer? I repeated, each syllable sharp. There's an issue here. I need to meet in person to resolve this. After a brief pause, the agent responded. We've noticed irregularities as well. Can you come to our office tomorrow morning? We'll have all loan and ownership documents ready for review. I didn't hesitate. I'll be there. Hanging up, I turned to my mother. Her eyes held worry, but also unwavering resolve. She squeezed my hand firmly. This time, I'm standing with you. The next morning at 9 a.m., we arrived at the finance company's office. The space was polished, leather chairs. The faint scent of coffee, but it offered no comfort. I was here to reclaim what was mine. A middle-aged man in a suit approached, holding a folder. Michael Carter, finance director. Read the nameplate on his desk. Thank you for coming, he said, shaking my hand with a knowing look. Please sit. My mother and I settled as he slid a folder toward me. We've reviewed your father's transfer request, he began, his tone measured. There's a serious problem. I opened the file, scanning the documents. The apartment still has an outstanding loan, which means the transfer cannot proceed. I frowned. So it's not legal? Michael nodded. Exactly. The mortgage agreement prohibits transfers without the consent of the person making payments. That's you, not your father. A flicker of hope sparked within me. The apartment is still mine? Yes, Michael confirmed. Your father had no authority to sell it without your approval. We can freeze all transactions immediately to prevent unauthorized transfers. For the first time in days, I felt a faint smile form. Do it. Michael signed a few papers, then looked at me thoughtfully. There's something else you need to know. My stomach tightened as he slid another file toward me. While reviewing your loan records, we found something unusual. I flipped through the pages, my eyes catching bolded figures and legal terms. Then I stopped cold. Loan amount, $20,000. Primary borrower, Sophia Carter. Co-signer, Richard Carter, my father. Date issued, 4 months ago. I'd never taken this loan. My voice barely emerged. What is this? Michael sighed, adjusting his glasses. This loan is in your name, with your father as co-signer. Since his name was on the property, the bank approved it using your apartment as collateral. Shock surged through me. He used my apartment for a loan? Michael nodded. Worse, the contract holds you responsible for repayment. The room tilted. I shook my head. I never signed anything. He pushed the final page toward me. My signature stared back, but it wasn't mine. My mother gasped, gripping my hand. He forged it? She whispered, her voice trembling. I couldn't speak. My father hadn't just tried to steal my home. He'd saddle me with a $20,000 debt I never agreed to. Michael's expression softened. We can report this as identity fraud, and launch an investigation immediately. My fists clenched. My father thought I'd never uncover his betrayal. He was mistaken. The question burned in my mind. Should I press charges? The evidence was clear, fraud, undeniable. I could take him to court, but he was still my father. My mother's hand rested gently on my shoulder, grounding me. Let's go home first, she said softly. Talk to him. No matter what, he's still family. I exhaled deeply, forcing calm into my trembling frame. Maybe there's another way to resolve this first, I thought, choosing to heed my mother's advice. When I returned home, my father was there. After vanishing for a night, he sat in his armchair as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't shattered his daughter's world. Remote in hand, he flicked through TV channels, treating us like intruders disrupting his evening. My patience snapped. Did you take out a $20? 000 loan in my name? My voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. He didn't even glance up, just shrugged. So what? My fists tightened. So what? I repeated, each word deliberate. You forged my signature. You saddled me with a debt I never agreed to. Do you even grasp what you've done? Finally, he turned, but instead of remorse, a smirk curled his lips. I raised you, didn't I? What's $20,000 to your father? His words struck harder than any fist could. I'd worked relentlessly, built my life without handouts, earned that apartment through my own sweat. And now he acted like I owed him? Rage surged within me. Give it to you? I said, my voice low and fierce, eyes blazing. You took it without asking. You lied. That's not giving, it's stealing. He slammed his hand on the table, face flushing with anger. You dare talk to your father like that? He rose, stepping toward me, his presence looming. My heart raced, but I held my ground. One more step, I said, voice steady, and I'll call the police right now. My mother darted between us, arms outstretched. Enough, she cried, her voice cracking with anguish. Do you even see what you're doing? This is your daughter. My father halted, his eyes burning with rage, but he stayed silent. I met his gaze, unyielding. You have 1 week, I said, my tone firm. You and Victoria fix this, or I'm taking you both to court. A thick silence settled over the room. My mother turned to me, her face etched with determination. She nodded. And I knew she'd stand by me to the end. My father didn't believe I'd follow through. He thought I was bluffing, caught in a fleeting outburst. He was mistaken. That afternoon, I called Nathan, a friend and attorney skilled in real estate and finance. We met at his office immediately. 2 hours later, I left with a clear strategy. Sophia, if your father won't cooperate, we can take this to court, Nathan said, his eyes steady and resolute. But first, we'll send a formal legal notice. The next day, a letter was delivered directly into my father's hands. My father couldn't dismiss it or crumple it like an irritating text. I'd ensured that by sending it via certified mail, requiring his signature upon delivery. The envelope contained a formal ultimatum, meticulously crafted and bearing the seal of my attorney's office. Legal notice. Recipient, Richard Carter. Sender, Sophia Carter. Represented by Nathan Reynolds, ESQ had addressed the apartment at 1425 Westbrook Avenue, Manhattan, New York. The mortgage agreement clearly barred ownership transfers without the consent of the legal payer, me, the sole person responsible for the loan. His attempt to sell the property violated the financial contract and bordered on fraud. Worse, his unauthorized use of my identity to secure a $20,000 loan constituted identity fraud, a crime ripe for prosecution. The notice demanded that he and Victoria vacate the apartment within 7 days of receipt. Failure to comply would trigger a financial fraud complaint, legal action to strip his name from the property, and notification to the bank to enforce protective measures. This was no hollow threat. I preferred a peaceful resolution. But I would pursue every legal avenue if he refused to act. I urged him to consider his next steps carefully. Signed, Sophia Carter. After dispatching the notice, I drove to my apartment, my pulse hammering as I faced the door I shouldn't have to knock on. I steadied myself, took a deep breath, and rapped firmly. The door opened to reveal Victoria, arms crossed, her face smug. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice thick with defiance. I had no patience left. "You've got two choices," I said, my tone even and deliberate. "Leave now, or wait for the police to show up." She scoffed, eyes glinting with mockery. "You wouldn't dare." I smirked faintly and reached into my bag, pulling out a copy of the legal notice. Slowly, I unfolded it before her. flipping each page so she could see the attorney's red seal, the stark legal terms, and the weight of the consequences. Think so? I met her gaze. Dad received this letter this morning. If you still think I'm bluffing, read it closely before you laugh again. Her eyes dropped to the document, her hand tightening subtly. The smugness began to fracture. I don't believe you, she said. Her voice softer, clinging to bravado. I folded the letter, pulled out my phone, and displayed Nathan's number for her to see. Believe what you want, I said, but if you're still here next week, my lawyer will take over, and the police won't be far behind. Her confidence dissolved into silence. I couldn't bear returning to my mother's house, steeped in the heavy air of a family unraveling. Instead, I called a friend and asked to stay with her for a few days. Are you okay? Emily asked, concern in her eyes as she opened her door. I managed a faint smile, uncertain. I don't know yet. I admitted, but I will be. That night, my phone lit up. My father's name flashed across the screen. I lifted the phone, my thumb hovering over the answer button before I declined the call. Moments later, a message pinged through. Are you really taking it this far? My father wrote. For the first time, I sensed a flicker of fear in his words. I didn't respond. Another message arrived swiftly. You'll lose your family if you do this. My grip on the phone tightened, exhaustion stinging my eyes. I typed a brief reply. You lost me when you sold my home. Without waiting for his response, I powered off the device, placed it face down, and pulled the blanket over my head. Tonight, I needed rest. The next morning, I turned on my phone. And the screen erupted with notifications, missed calls not just from my father, but from my uncle, my aunt, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Then I opened my messages. A flood of venomous texts poured in. What kind of daughter sues her own father? How dare you treat your family like this? Ungrateful child. Victoria was right, you're selfish. Only caring about yourself. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the onslaught, my fingers clenching the phone. Then I paused at a familiar name. Jake, my younger cousin. Hey, what's going on? No accusations, no venom, just genuine confusion. I typed back immediately. What do you mean? His reply came fast. You haven't seen it? Victoria posted about you on Facebook. My stomach sank. I opened Facebook, my fingers racing across the screen until I found it. A public post from Victoria, visible to every relative and friend. My hands tightened as I read her words. Each one a calculated lie, twisting the truth with effortless malice. She'd cast me as the villain, and the worst part? It worked. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was an attack. The comments beneath her post multiplied. Relatives, friends, even acquaintances piled on, calling me selfish, heartless, ungrateful. Poor Victoria. How could your sister do this? Family is everything. What's wrong with her? Poor Mr. Richard. Having a daughter like that must be crushing. They didn't know the truth, but Victoria did. I exhaled sharply. If she wanted to wage this war, I'd prove I wasn't someone she could trample anymore. Her post was a masterpiece of deception, framing me as a traitor while she and my father posed as innocent victims. The lies stung, but the blind support for her burned worse, hundreds of comments, each one swallowing her story whole. I couldn't let this distortion stand a moment longer. So, I asked my mother to call a family meeting that afternoon, letting them believe it was to rally around my father and Victoria, to condemn me as the villain Victoria had painted online. They took the bait, arriving without hesitation. By 5 p.m., the living room was packed. Uncles, aunts, cousins. Every face etched with anger and judgment. My father sat at the center, arms crossed, a smug glint in his eye. Victoria lounged in her chair, running a hand through her perfectly styled hair, poised for what she assumed would be my downfall. My mother stood to the side, her expression tense, but no one suspected what she was holding back. I entered the room, and the air grew still. Nathan, my lawyer, followed close behind, a thick stack of legal documents in hand. Silence gripped the room. I met my father's gaze, then Victoria's. Good evening, everyone, I said, my voice steady and cold. It's time we discussed the truth. My father's jaw tightened. Victoria's face drained of color. I gave them no chance to interrupt. Nathan opened his folder and drew out the first set of papers. This is the mortgage agreement, he declared, his tone commanding attention. It confirms Sophia Carter as the sole payer of the loan. He fixed his eyes on my father. Meaning Richard Carter had no legal authority to sell the apartment. Murmurs rippled through the room, confusion flickering across my relatives' faces. Nathan wasn't finished. He placed another document on the table. This proves Richard Carter used Sophia's identity to secure a $20,000 loan without her knowledge or consent. A heavy quiet settled, the weight of his words sinking in. I scanned the room, watching his anger once aimed at me shifted toward my father and Victoria. Is this true? My aunt asked, her voice wavering. Richard, what's going on? My uncle demanded, his glare piercing. Victoria's breath caught, her voice faltering. It's not like that, she stammered, but I cut her off. Mom, you witnessed it all. Tell them. My mother stepped forward, her breath steadying. Everything Sophia said is true, she said, her voice resolute. I've stayed silent too long, but no more. Chaos erupted. Relatives who'd vilified me hours ago now turned on my father and Victoria. This is outrageous, my uncle snapped. Selling her home without asking? My aunt shook her head. Forging her signature for a loan? That's criminal. My cousin Jake's voice trembled with disbelief. I stood quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to seal this. As the clamor subsided, I stepped forward, my gaze locked on my father and Victoria. I don't want apologies or pity, I said, my voice sharp. I want my apartment back and the $20,000 loan paid in full. I set another stack of documents on the table. You have 3 days. My eyes held theirs, unyielding. My father's fists clenched, knuckles whitening, but he remained silent. Victoria bit her lip, eyes glistening. 3 days to return everything and a public correction post online, clear and honest. I turned to Victoria, my tone devoid of warmth. You smeared my name to our entire family. You'll fix it. I stood tall, fearless, unwavering. If nothing changes in 3 days, I'll sue. Silence followed. My mother nodded in quiet solidarity. My relatives sat in uneasy stillness. My father's face darkened with rage, but he said nothing. They had one choice, comply or face the law. 2 days later, my phone rang, an unknown number, but I knew what to expect. Hello, Miss Sophia, came the familiar voice from the finance company. The $20,000 loan in your name was fully paid off this morning. I raised an eyebrow. The loan's cleared? I asked, ensuring I'd heard correctly. That's correct. Additionally, Mr. Richard Carter requested to cancel the apartment transfer to Victoria Carter. The paperwork is complete, and the property is officially yours again. I didn't know where he found the money. Maybe a loan. Maybe he sold something. It didn't matter. Thank you, I said, my voice calm. That afternoon, a text from Victoria arrived. Victoria's text stared back at me. I posted the correction on Facebook. Everyone's seen it. I know you don't trust me, but I mean it this time. I'm leaving. Come get the keys. I lingered on her words, then opened Facebook. There it was, just as she claimed, a new post, pinned for all to see. I read it carefully, each sentence stark and deliberate. It lacked warmth, devoid of any genuine remorse, more like a mandated statement than an apology. But sincerity wasn't the point. The truth was public now, her lies unraveled. The smear she'd cast against me was undone. I exhaled, a heavy weight easing from my chest. This chapter was closing on my terms. A faint smirk crossed my lips. This wasn't contrition, it was survival. Victoria had no choice. And that was enough. I typed a brief response. I'll come for the keys now. My apartment was mine again, and no one would wrest it from me this time. 3 days later, it was done. The apartment was legally mine once more, the $20,000 loan erased. Victoria vanished without a word, and I thought that marked the end. But then my phone buzzed. The screen lighting up with a name I couldn't ignore, Dad. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Finally, I picked up. His voice came through, low and weary, unlike I'd ever heard. Are you happy now? He asked. I let out a quiet laugh, void of warmth. Happy? I said, my tone even. This was never about happiness, Dad. This was about justice, and a lesson you needed to learn. The line went silent for a moment, his breathing heavy. I didn't wait for a response. You thought you could take everything I worked for. I continued, my voice steady. But you underestimated me. I fought for what's mine, and I won. That's the lesson. I hung up, no trace of doubt lingering. The apartment, the truth, my dignity, they were mine again. I stepped onto my balcony, the city humming below, and felt a quiet strength settle within me. This wasn't just a victory. It was a reclamation of my home, my voice, and my future.